Welcome to the Chinese Lore Podcast, where I retell classic Chinese stories in English. This is episode 81 of Investiture of the Gods. Last time, the combined forces of the Zhou army and the nobles were continuing to face off in Mengjin against a Shang army led by Yuan Hong, the monkey demon of Osmanthus Mountain. The Chan Taoist warrior Yang Jian had slew a few of Yuan Hong's fellow demons, but more just kept showing up. When we left them, Yang Jian and his comrade Ne Zha were fighting against Yang Xian, the goat demon, and Dai Li, the dog demon. After fighting Yang Jian for 30 bouts, the goat demon Yang Xian turned and rode away. When Yang Jian gave chase, the demon suddenly spat out a white beam of light that enveloped himself and his horse, and amid this beam, Yang Xian showed his true form and tried to attack Yang Jian. But Yang Jian transformed into a fierce tiger, and tiger beats goat any day. Yang Xian tried to run, but Yang Jian was quick with his saber and cut the goat demon in half. He then cut off the goat's head and shouted back toward Jiang Ziya, "Commander, I have killed another of the demons of Osmanthus Mountain." Meanwhile, the dog demon Dai Li was fighting Ne Zha. Suddenly, Dai Li spat out a bowl-sized red bead toward Ne Zha's head, which forced Ne Zha to retreat. Yang Jian, however, charged over and took on Dai Li. After 20-some exchanges, Dai Li turned and rode away, and Yang Jian pursued. Dai Li now spat out another red bead, but Yang Jian dodged it and then summoned his sky-barking hound. Dai Li saw the hound coming at him and tried to run, but the hound grabbed him with its teeth, and Yang Jian finished him off with one swing of the saber before returning to camp to celebrate his victories. On the other side, the Shang commander Yuan Hong was quite irritated at seeing two more of his comrades not only killed, but also exposed as demons. When he returned to camp, all his officers were chattering amongst themselves about what they had seen. Suddenly, word came that another warrior was outside seeking an audience. Yuan Hong called him in. This guy was tall, had two horns on his head, a mouth that protruded like a snout, and pointy ears. He was dressed in golden armor and helmet and a red battle robe. Yuan Hong asked for his name, and the warrior introduced himself as Jin Da-sheng of Osmanthus Mountain. So this was another of Yuan Hong's demon friends, and he was an ox demon who wielded a three-tipped saber and was very strong. He and Yuan Hong knew each other, but Yuan Hong just pretended to not know him in order to fool the others. The next day, Jin Da-sheng rode out on his unicorn and demanded battle. When Jiang Ziya asked who would go face him, the general Zheng Lun volunteered, so he rode out on his golden-eyed beast with his demon-quelling staff. After they traded names, Zheng Lun said to his foe, "You don't look human. How dare you block our army and disobey heaven? Submit now and help us exterminate the tyrant. Otherwise, you will bring disaster and humiliation upon yourself." Jin Da-sheng was infuriated by those words, and the two quickly came to blows. After hacking at each other for a while, Jin Da-sheng suddenly spat out a bezoar, or a gallstone made of ox bile. It was the size of a bowl and flew at Zheng Lun's head. Zheng Lun couldn't dodge in time and took the blow squarely in the face, which sent him crashing to the ground. Jin Da-sheng then raised his saber and cut Zheng Lun in half. While Jin Da-sheng returned to camp and reported his victory, Jiang Ziya lamented Zheng Lun's death. "Zheng Lun had rendered great service," he sighed while his tears fell like rain. "Since he submitted to the Zhou with Su Hu, he had escorted provisions for our campaign and done great work for our king. Who knew that he would die at the hand of a nobody? How depressing." Then he asked who would go avenge Zheng Lun, and Yang Jian immediately stepped forth. Jiang Ziya consented, so Yang Jian rode out and demanded to speak with Jin Da-sheng. Jin Da-sheng came out, and they traded names and started to tango, both wielding three-tipped sabers. After 30-some bouts, Jin Da-sheng again spat out his gallstone. Yang Jian hadn't had a chance to use his magic mirror yet to see what kind of demon Jin Da-sheng was, so he was caught off guard and had to retreat toward the south. Jin Da-sheng gave chase. As he closed in, Yang Jian pulled out his mirror and shined it at his foe, revealing that Jin Da-sheng was a water buffalo. Now, Yang Jian turned and tried to take him on again, but suddenly, a fragrant breeze blew in from ahead, accompanied by a colorful cloud. Within the cloud emerged a pair of yellow banners flanking a female Taoist seated atop a blue phoenix and accompanied by 4 pairs of young girl acolytes. Yang Jian, come pay your respects to our mistress, the acolytes shouted. Yang Jian now went to them and paid his respects. Yang Jian, I am none other than the goddess Nuwa, the female Taoist said. So we haven't talked about Nuwa since episode 1. She was the creation goddess whose temple King Zhou had desecrated by writing a lurid poem on its walls about how hot her statue was. That ticked off Nuwa something fierce, so she tasked the fox demon and her friends to help bring about the downfall of the House of Shang, thus kickstarting our whole novel. The House of Shang is at an end, while the House of Zhou is ascendant, Nuwa now continued. I have come to help you tame the demons of Osmanthus Mountain. While Yang Jian stood and watched, Nuwa told one of her acolytes, take this treasure and go bring that beast to heel. Momentarily, Jin Dasheng stomped onto the scene with saber in hand. The acolyte stood in his way and shouted, You beast! Don't be rude in the presence of our mistress. I have come to apprehend you on her command. Jin Dasheng was irate that this little girl was talking smack to him, so he raised his saber and attacked. The acolyte unleashed the treasure, which was a demon-taming cord. A divine warrior appeared and ran the cord through Jin Dasheng's nostrils. He then banged on the demon's back a few times with a bronze mallet, and as a thunder cracked, Jin Dasheng reverted to his true form. Yang Jian kneeled and thanked Nuwa for her help. She told him, Take the ox demon back to camp for punishment. I will also help you tame the monkey demon. So Yang Jian took his leave and brought the water buffalo back to camp. Jiang Ziya was worrying about him after hearing that he had fled toward the south while being chased. Ne Zha tried to reassure him, but Jiang Ziya said, The Grand Duke of the East has not yet arrived with his forces, and now we are being blocked by the 7 demons of Osmanthus Mountain. That's why I am worried. But just then, Yang Jian returned and reported what happened. Jiang Ziya and company now went out to the camp gate and found the ox demon tied up and kneeling on the ground. Jiang Ziya told the general Nan Gongquo to do his duty, so Nan Gongquo pulled out his saber and chopped off the ox's head to the cheer of all 800,000 troops present. Jiang Ziya ordered the head be hung up for display and then returned to camp. He then asked Yang Jian how many demons of Osmanthus Mountain he had killed. Yang Jian told him 6. Jiang Ziya then ordered his officers to prepare to raid the enemy's camp around 7 o'clock that night. He also told Yang Jian, You should go take on Yuan Hong alone. Once you have captured that demon, success will be ours. May I go with Ne Zha so as to make it easier? Yang Jian asked. Jiang Ziya consented, and everyone prepared for action. In the Shang camp, Yuan Hong got word that another of his demon friends had bitten the dust, which made him even more worried. He met with 2 of his human officers, Yin Po Bai and Lei Kai. His Highness commanded us to defend this place, Yuan Hong said. Even though we have a lot of soldiers, we have few capable warriors. The capital has not sent any reinforcements for days, and we haven't reported any victories lately. I worry that the king will start to get concerned, which would not bode well. So Yuan Hong dispatched an officer to go to the capital and request reinforcements. But later that night, he suddenly heard a sound of explosives outside, followed by the roar of battle. The enemy's raiding party had just crashed into his camp. The Grand Duke of the South and his 200 nobles led the way. The Grand Duke of the North charged into the left camp. Li Jing, Wei Hu, and Thunderbolt charged into the right camp, while Yang Jian and Ne Zha stormed toward the command tent to find Yuan Hong. Getting word of the raid, Yuan Hong rushed out, mounted his horse, and rode out to fight. He ran smack dab into Yang Jian, and they started trading blows. All around them, Shang soldiers were falling by the tens of thousands as their bodies covered the field and their blood flowed in rivers as the sounds of the dead and dying filled the night air. Amid the fierce battle, Yuan Hong showed his true form, flew into the air, and brought his steel staff down on Yang Jian's head. He made contact, but Yang Jian seemed impervious as sparks flew. Yang Jian now transformed into a beam of golden light, took to the air, and brought his saber down on Yuan Hong. But Yuan Hong also transformed into a column of white smoke and protected himself. "Damn monkey, stop your tricks!" Yang Jian shouted. "I'm going to capture you and skin you alive." Yuan Hong shot back, "What skills do you have that you would dare to kill all my comrades? I will have it out with you and cut you to pieces to avenge them." And so both of them started going through their respective bags of tricks, turning into anything and everything as they tried to one-up each other. After this went on for a while, Yuan Hong thought to himself, "The enemy has sacked my camp. I can't hold out here. Let me lure him to Osmanthus Mountain. Once he is in my lair, he will not be able to escape." So Yuan Hong abandoned camp and fled toward Osmanthus Mountain. In his wake, the nobles slaughtered the remaining Shang army before returning to camp at dawn. Yang Jian, meanwhile, fast-traveled after Yuan Hong. Suddenly, he lost sight of his prey. He stopped and scoured the area with his third eye. That's when he spotted a strange-looking boulder by the side of the road. That was Yuan Hong in disguise, so Yang Jian promptly transformed himself into a stonecutter and approached the boulder with auger and hammer in hand. Yuan Hong realized his cover was blown, so he vanished into the breeze. And once again, they resumed their chase, transforming into this or that as they headed into Osmanthus Mountain. Once he was on the mountain, Yang Jian started looking all around. Suddenly, he heard a cry from below a cliff. Before he knew it, he was besieged by a swarm of thousands of little monkeys, each beating him with a staff. Figuring he couldn't fend off the simian swarm, Yang Jian turned into a beam of golden light and took off. When he went around the hill, he suddenly heard divine music and saw a swirl of colorful clouds as the goddess Nuwa descended. Yang Jian kneeled and said, "I didn't realize it was your ladyship and failed to get out of the way. Please pardon me." Nuwa told him, "You may be Jade Tripod's disciple and skilled at transformation, but you cannot tame this demon. Let me give you something to help you." So she handed him an item and then took off. Yang Jian opened it and saw that it was a magical map named the Topographical Diagram of the Kingdom. Following instructions, he hung the map on a tree and then went back into Osmanthus Mountain and sought out Yuan Hong. When Yuan Hong saw him coming again, he shouted, "Yang Jian, you must be looking to die." Yang Jian laughed, "You're the one who's doomed." The two now engaged in another fierce battle. After a while, Yang Jian turned and fled, and Yuan Hong followed him off the mountain. As the chase went on, they approached a high peak. Yang Jian hurried onto the peak, and Yuan Hong followed him. Little did Yuan Hong know that this was actually the magic map in disguise. When he reached the top of the peak, he suddenly realized that he couldn't get down. Yang Jian now leaped out of the map, leaving his foe stumbling around looking for a way out. As Yuan Hong wandered around the map, the landscape transformed to fit whatever happened to be on his mind. Suddenly, he caught a whiff of something irresistible, something sweet and fragrant. He looked up and saw a huge peach tree covered with red, juicy peaches. Yuan Hong couldn't help but turn back into his monkey self and climb the tree. He plucked one of the peaches, sniffed it, and gobbled it down in one bite. Then he sat down next to the tree and rested. Just then, Yang Jian suddenly showed up with sword in hand. Yuan Hong tried to get up, but he couldn't, not with that magic peach in his stomach. Yang Jian now grabbed him by the scalp and tied him up with the demon taming cord. He then rolled up the map, bowed to the south to thank the goddess for her help, and returned to camp with monkey in tow. Upon returning to camp, Yang Jian told Jiang Ziya how Nuwa had helped him apprehend the monkey demon. Jiang Ziya was delighted and had the monkey brought in. When he saw it, he said, "This demon has caused immeasurable suffering for mankind. He deserves to die. Take him outside and execute him." So the officers dragged the monkey out to the camp gate, where Yang Jian swung his saber and chopped off its head. Except there was no blood from the stump in the neck. Instead, a wisp of smoke flew out, followed by a white lotus flower, and when the flower bloomed, another monkey head appeared. Okay, let's try that again. Yang Jian chopped off this new head, but another grew in its place. This went on for a few rounds before Yang Jian decided to call in Jiang Ziya. Jiang Ziya came out and saw this for himself. He then said, "This monkey has absorbed the essence of heaven and earth, of the sun and the moon. That's why he can pull this trick. No matter though." He now ordered his men to set up an incense table. Then he took out a red gourd and placed it on the table. This was the magic gourd that the freelance Taoist Lu Ya had given him when they parted ways after breaking the 10,000 Immortals formation. Jiang Ziya now uncorked the gourd, and a long white string emerged. Jiang Ziya bowed and said, "Treasure, please show yourself." An object now appeared at the end of the string. It was about 7.5 inches long and had eyes from which shot 2 beams of white light. The light beams fixed the demon monkey in place. Jiang Ziya then bowed again and said, "Treasure, please spin." The object now spun a few times in the air, and the monkey's head hit the ground. This time, blood gushed out of his neck, and the monkey was dead. Everyone present was freaked out by the killer gourd, so they asked Jiang Ziya what the heck happened. He told them, "This was a gift from Master Lu Ya. He told me that I would need it, and it turns out he was right." This treasure was honed from pure iron by the essence of the sun, moon, heaven, and earth. It has 2 eyes with white light beams which can seize a demon spirit from inside its skull. The flying dagger can spin around like a windmill and cut off the head of any demon with just a couple spins. Everyone remarked, "The martial king is truly blessed to have the aid of such a treasure." While Jiang Ziya was busy showing off his deadly toy, the Shang generals Yin Po Bai and Lei Kai rushed back to the capital to tell King Zhou about the debacle. 7 demons from Osmanthus Mountain took human form to fight against the Zhou forces, but they were killed one after another and revealed their true forms, they said. They made the court look bad and doomed the entire army. We had no choice but to retreat back here. Right now, the nobles of the land are gathered at Mengjin, and they are exuding malice. We hope your highness will act promptly for the good of the country. You must not allow the nobles to reach the foot of the city, or it would be too late. King Zhou panicked and quickly assembled his court to ask his officials for ideas. But everyone just kept their mouths shut. Then the official Fei Lian stepped forth and said, "Your Highness should immediately dispatch an edict to be hung up at the 4 gates of the city, offering a position at court to anyone who can defeat the enemy. As the old saying goes, when there is a handsome reward, there will be valiant men. Also, the officer Lu Renjie is a warrior and a scholar. You should order him to mobilize and drill your forces to prepare for a stout defense of the city, so as to exhaust the enemy. The nobles have come a long way, and a quick battle would be to their advantage. If we don't fight them, once their provisions run out, they will retreat without a battle. Then you can pursue and rout them. Even with their superior numbers, they will surely be defeated. This is the best course of action." Well, it's an idea, and by default, the best idea his court was offering up at the moment. So King Zhou went along with it and posted recruitment notices while commanding Lu Renjie to drill the soldiers and prepare for defense. Let's leave the capital for now and go catch up on a different branch of the Zhou army. This was the force that Jiang Ziya had dispatched to go help Jiang Wenhuan, the Grand Duke of the East, with his war against the Shang. This army was led by Ne Zha's 2 elder brothers, Jin Zha and Mu Zha. As they traveled toward their destination, the 2 brothers started to discuss strategy. "We have been sent to help the Grand Duke of the East to make his way through Wandering Soul Pass," Jin Zha said. "We should avoid a drawn-out fight. Let's disguise ourselves as Taoists and pretend to go to help Dou Rong, the Shang commander at the pass. Once we earn his trust, we can coordinate with the forces on the outside and achieve victory in one battle." Mu Zha agreed, so they sent their army on to Jiang Wenhuan to tell him that the brothers would be along shortly. Then the 2 of them fast traveled to inside Wandering Soul Pass. They went to the commander's office and requested an audience, introducing themselves as foreign Taoists. Dou Rong, the veteran commander of the pass, invited them in, greeted them, and asked what they were doing there. "We are the Taoists Sun De and Xu Ren from Penglai Island on the East Sea," Jin Zha said. "We were traveling across the land when we passed through here and saw Jiang Wenhuan trying to barge through this pass to meet up with the other nobles at Mengjin and attack the king. This is all due to Jiang Ziya's misdeeds. He riled up the nobles with his slander, plunging the civilians into calamity and the realm into chaos. He is a traitor to all the land, and everyone should try to bring him to justice. Yesterday, we saw omens predicting that the Shang will thrive and that Jiang Ziya and company will suffer. We are willing to lend a hand to help you first capture Jiang Wenhuan, and then to sweep behind the nobles and catch them unawares. Then they will be captured in one battle. It would be like thunder that's so fast that one has no time to cover his ears. This would be an unrivaled merit. We are men of religion and should not be involved in matters of war. But since we have encountered this injustice, we have come to offer you our help. Please consider our offer." When he heard this, Dou Rong fell silent, but his lieutenant Yao Zhong barked, "Commander, you must not trust these Taoist words. Jiang Ziya has tons of Taoists in his service. These two might be spies. I heard a couple days ago that there are 600 nobles helping Jifa and Mengjin. Jiang Ziya must have sent these two here in disguise because you have been preventing Jiang Wenhuan from joining the rest of them. They are here to serve as the inside men. You must be on guard and cannot trust them lightly." Jin Zha, however, roared with laughter and said to his brother, "My Taoist friend, it's just as you predicted." He then turned back to Dou Rong and said, "That general is correct. Right now, chaos reigns, and it's hard to tell truth from lies. How can you know whether we are Jiang Ziya's spies? You have every reason to be suspicious. However, there's another reason in my coming here. My Taoist uncle was killed by Jiang Ziya in the 10,000 Immortals formation. I have long wanted revenge, but could not succeed alone. So, I came to borrow your forces, in part to render service to the court, in part to settle my personal score, and in part to lend you a hand. I have no other motives, but since you are suspicious, there's no point in me staying. We will depart right away." At that, he and Mu Jia turned and started to walk out while laughing. Their act was convincing enough to fool Dou Rong. He thought to himself, "The Zhou does have many enemies among the Taoists. Even though Jiang Ziya has a lot of disciples in his service, there are also many powerful Taoists around the land. What are the chances that these two would be Jiang Ziya's men? Besides, I have a huge army here. Just these two won't be able to do much anyway, so why should I suspect them? If skilled Taoists want to come help me, I shouldn't pass up the opportunity." So he quickly ordered an attendant to go ask the Taoists to come back. The attendant caught up to Jin Zha and Mu Jia and shouted, "Masters, my lord is inviting you back." But Jin Zha turned and said sternly, "Heaven and earth can bear witness to my sincerity. I advised your master loyally, but he declined and chose to listen to some lieutenant instead, making us look bad. We will not go back." But the attendant begged them time and again, saying, "If you don't come back with me, I won't dare to go back to see my master either." Mu Jia now played the good cop and said, "Taoist brother, since General Dou is inviting us back, let's go see how he treats us. If he values us, then we'll help him. If not, then we can still leave." Jin Zha hemmed and hawed before reluctantly agreeing. So they followed the attendant back to Dou Rong's office. The attendant announced them, and Dou Rong came out and respectfully welcomed them, saying, "I had not had the pleasure to meet you before. With conflicts raging in our realm, we had to keep up our guard, and my officer was bound to harbor suspicions. I was ignorant and indecisive and offended you. Please excuse me. Right now, Jiang Ziya is gathering his forces at Mengjin, and our people are on edge. Jiang Wenhuan is also attacking our pass day and night. How can I resolve the problems of the realm, capture the rebels, and protect the civilians? Please instruct me, and I will follow your guidance. Now this was more like it. Jin Zha now said, in my view, Jiang Ziya may have hundreds of nobles at Mengjin, but they are of no concern. They all have their own motives and will scatter in time. As for Jiang Wenhuan's attack on your pass, you must not fight him head on and should instead use strategy to capture him. That will scare the other nobles and they will retreat without a fight. Then you can lead your victorious army and move in on Mengjin from behind. No matter what skills Jiang Ziya possesses, he will not be able to counter. And once the other nobles hear that Jiang Wenhuan has been captured, their morale will sink and they will leave. And then you can attack them and achieve great victory. Dou Rong was elated at this advice. He asked his new helpers to sit while his attendants brought wine. Jin Zha and Mu Zha declined the wine on account of them being men of religion. Instead, they just sat on their meditation mats in the hall. The next morning, Dou Rong was discussing matters with his staff when word came that Jiang Wenhuan was outside, demanding battle again. Dou Rong said to Jin Zha and Mu Zha, "The Grand Duke of the East is challenging for combat. Do you have any ideas on how to repel him?" "Let me go have a look first, and then I will devise a scheme to capture him," Jin Zha said. "Please send some men with me to help tie up prisoners." Dou Rong was delighted and ordered his army to go out, with himself personally overseeing the lines. To see how this fight will go, tune in to the next episode of the Chinese Lore Podcast. Thanks for listening.